On WNYC. Now we continue our Membership Drive mini-series about personal style. A few minutes at the end of the show on the meaning of the clothing we wear. Today's guest is Avery Trufelman, host of Articles of Interest, a podcast that explores the hidden histories and cultural forces shaping American style. So let's think about how the clothes we wear are already part of a larger cultural conversation. Hey, Avery, welcome back to WNYC.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. Always fun to be here.
And listeners, any quick stories on this? What place or community or cultural influence has shaped your personal clothing style? Do you ever think in those terms? Who can identify any outside influence like that on what you wear? 212-433 WNYC. Not a whole lot of time for calls in this segment, so call us up. You'll get right on because we've only got a few minutes left in the show. But when you look at your closet, what story does it tell about the context of your life? Or if you're a fan of Avery, you can just ask her a question. 212-433 WNYC. So Articles of Interest makes the case for people uninitiated that clothing carries social information even when we experience it as personal expression. You want to give people an example of that? Maybe that's common today?
Yeah, clothing is the literal barrier between yourself and society, right? If we all wanted to just blend in, we would all wear a uniform. If we all wanted to stand out in whatever ridiculous way we wanted to, we would all dress in ridiculous ways. We'd all be wearing feather boas and fireman hats, And fashion is this really interesting way that we try to blend in with each other, but try to stand out. And we really show our education, our class, so much about ourselves in our personal style. And one of my favorite examples of this is preppy clothes. We could look at two people wearing a polo shirt and khakis, and just the subtle ways that they're styling this very basic, simple, classic outfit says so much about what they think is socially acceptable and where they come from. And it's not in the way that you'd expect. For example, a student on an Ivy League campus will probably wear this outfit much rattier, much dirtier, probably won't clean it up so neatly. If you look at Lisa Birnbach's seminal publication, The Preppy Handbook, she talks about this, about how old money, preppy students tend to wear their clothes ratty. They've been passed down for generations and they're a little rough around the edges. Whereas if you look at a lot of hip hop artists and a lot of new collectors of Ralph Lauren, who I've talked to, who grew up in the Bronx and in Brooklyn and in Brownsville, they were like, it's all about being clean. I iron my shirts, I iron my khakis. It's all about coming really, really fresh and correct. And so these are just two different ways of styling the exact same clothes that send really, really different messages about where you come from and what you think style means to you. So
listeners, who has a story about how your style choices that might feel personal might also be rooted in larger contexts like geography or institutions or communities or social trends. 212-433 WNYC 433-9692. And Lorna in Peekskill has something like that for us, I think. Hi, Lorna. You're on WNYC with Avery Trufelman.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for taking my call. Well, I was just mentioning I was born and raised in India, and I love my traditional clothes. I'm always wearing my kurtas, and in a sort of salad bowl like we are, you would expect that this would be very kind of common, but the comments, quote unquote, exotic, sensational, or how come you don't dress more American? It sort of reflects where we are, and it's very different from where we are supposed to be in terms of people's perceptions of what is American and what is not.
Avery?
That's such a good point. And I think that there's something so distinctly, quote unquote, American about this because, we are the country that invented mass-produced, ready-to-wear clothing. We are the country that developed this idea that you're supposed to have a shirt and pants that you buy off the shelf that are sort of cookie cutter and look the same. And this was supposed to be our idea of democracy, right? Like everybody has access to all the same clothes, which was supposed to be part of our democratic experiment, but it does have this dark side, which is that we're like, well, why don't you just wear the accessible, cheap clothing that you're supposed to have access to? You're not supposed to wear these unusual clothes. You know what I mean? And that it's incredible that this legacy still continues today. For so many of these histories, it's rooted so deep. It's 250 years old. But also, I'm so sorry people say that to you still.
Morna, thank you for sharing that, though. It's very informative. Here's a text that says, I see a lot of camo in my closet. How did that morph from the military to the public?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. I actually just made a whole series that gets to this question. It's a really complicated, interesting story, but very, very, very long story short, the American military started putting camouflage on clothing around the Vietnam War, and there became this sort of impetus to put camouflage for every environment that we started getting deployed to after that. And then the interesting thing was that camouflage, it's really interesting because it's a great pattern, objectively. It was created by an artist. It was created by an American landscape and portrait painter, Abbott Thayer, who was a contemporary of John Singer Sargent. So the funny thing is, camouflage is actually much closer to an art than a science. It's quite objectively beautiful. But I think a big reason that it has expanded into so much of our culture and to so much of our clothing is the influence of the special forces, who have become sort of these superheroes and these legends and these influencers, members of SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force. These used to be kind of secret members of these elite teams, and no one really knew what they did. And now they're influencers, they're public, there are so many movies and films made about them. And especially as the nature of warfare changed over the War on Terror, they really were thrown into the spotlight. There's so much more to say there. There's a lot more to say there.
Well,
but
I know
essentially,
you've done
that's my theory about
multiple episodes on that. Let me sneak in one more caller. Michael in Manhattan, you're on WNYC. Hi, Michael. Michael?
Hello? Yes.
Hello. Hi. You're on.
Oh, okay. Hi. I just wanted to say that I grew up in Hawaii, and it's warm there, and we don't really think about clothes. We just wear whatever is comfortable. I mean, I remember going to a movie theater in nothing but a bikini and flip-flops. So
amazing.
I'm not that interested in wearing clothes, but I happen to be a fashion designer. It's kind of funny.
What?
And so when I don't really think about style much except during the summer when it's all about feeling good, feeling the air on your skin, feeling that sensuality. And I make dresses that express that,
that. And Michael, I'm going to leave it there because the show's about to end. But thank you. That was a great. Isn't that funny? Somebody who doesn't think about clothes becomes a fashion designer. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Do you have a last
thought in 15 seconds?
I was going to say maybe it's just a part of your psyche. And I will say, Hawaii is one of the only United States with its own signature article of clothing, which is, of course, the Hawaiian shirt or the Aloha shirt, which spread to prominence because it was mandated by the local government that it be worn on Saturdays. Sorry, not on Saturdays, on Fridays to support the local textile industry. So none of these things are ever an accident.
Avery Trufelman, host of the podcast Articles of Interest. giving
Thank you
us
so much.
the cultural, the institutional, there in that last thought, the economic context for the clothes we wear. Keep coming on with us. It's always fun.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Stay tuned for all of it with Allison Stewart coming up after the news. They've got Steve Earle today, the singer-songwriter, previewing his upcoming residency at the Grammy Theater. They have the founder and recipe developer of the Diaspora Spice Company, and more with Allison after the latest news.